Yeah, speaking of Trainwrecks, I figured I'd wear the senior year t-shirt from my bullshit high school for this video. So for all of you out there that saw this instead of Ant-Man this past weekend, don't worry, I got you guys covered too. So Trainwreck is a new romantic comedy directed by Judd Apatow starring Amy Schumer. And I will be honest with you, this was not a movie that I originally had any intention of really seeing. And from all the trailers and commercials I saw for it, it just really didn't seem like something that I needed to see. Because if you've seen a lot of movies like I have, you know there are times when that sort of transfer works out, and there are times when it just doesn't. Like, at all. Luckily, however, this is one of those times it really works out. So let's talk about why it does. So this movie opens up to Amy Schumer and her sister as kids, and their dad tells them that he and their mom are now getting a divorce. He tries to explain to them that having a lot of different sketchy affairs with a bunch of different women is totally okay in marriage, even though it completely isn't. And in conclusion, stresses to them that monogamy is not real, it's doomed to fail, and they should just stay single for the rest of their lives. And 23 years later, Amy Schumer has followed that advice religiously. She has spent her life partying hard and hooking up with a bunch of different guys. And honestly, this was an area in the movie that I thought was really smart. Because we all know that there are a lot of people out there who do stuff like this all the time because of their disbelief in relationships. I mean, it could be because they come from a divorced family or because they've just had a lot of bad luck in trying to hold down a steady relationship. I mean, sometimes it can just be from a multitude of reasons. So already I was really liking the direction this movie was going in. Later on at her job at a men's magazine, her super bitchy boss assigns her to do an article on Bill Hader's character. He's basically the best sports doctor in the business, so naturally he's associated with a lot of the big-time athletes that are out there. But the funniest part of it is Amy Schumer is just one of those girls out there that just absolutely despises sports. She hates watching sports, she doesn't really know any of the big-time sports teams, and she also feels that people who watch sports are basically stupid. Well, it's a good thing this movie isn't set in Boston, I can promise you that. In the meantime, Amy Schumer and her sister, played by the girl from 21 Jump Street, whose name I can never remember, are now beginning the process of moving their dad to an elderly home now. And her sister appears to live a pretty good life. I mean, she's married, she's a stepmother to her husband's son, and she is also currently pregnant now. So essentially, she's entered into the role of being a mother and a wife. So naturally, she's not exactly a daddy's girl. She resents how their dad drank a lot, wasn't really there for her when she was a child, and also the fact that he cheated on their mother with a multitude of women. It's because of this that she and Amy Schumer have gotten into a lot of arguments about whether or not to put their dad in a much nicer, but also much more expensive elderly home. And also the fact that Amy Schumer and her dad frequently make fun of her for not having a biological child, and also for her stepson being kind of on the weird side. Yeah, that's not exactly helping her dad's chances of getting into a nicer home. But I also thought this was really great for the movie to address. Because I think in most families, there's always usually one kid who maybe just grows up and doesn't really feel like they really belonged at times in the family. Like maybe they couldn't really relate well with most of the family, didn't really feel like they were wanted at times by most of the family. This is shown really well with Amy Schumer's sister, and I like that this is the reason why she's not really willing to sacrifice so much for a family that really didn't do much for her. I think a lot of people are going to watch this movie and relate with that as well. Meanwhile, we also find out that while Amy Schumer does get around with a lot of guys, she's apparently kinda sorta dating John Cena. Yeah, because I'm sure it must be really tough to get him to be in a movie, right? And he basically plays what he probably actually is in real life. A big awkward meathead who needs to just stress to everybody how jacked he is. He eventually goes through Amy's phone and he finds out that she's been sleeping around with a lot of guys. They get into a big fight because he thought they were exclusive while she did not feel that. Which completely alludes to the couples on Facebook with the relationship statuses, it's complicated. And it ultimately leads to him to basically telling her to go piss off. And now we finally get to her interview with Bill Hader. And Bill Hader I thought was great in this movie. I mean, starting from the first interview he has with Amy Schumer, he constantly jokes around with her about not knowing anything about sports. And they relate to a lot of different things. I mean, Bill Hader just came off as a really naturally funny and nice guy, so immediately you're rooting for the two of them to be together. And of course, later on that night, they end up sleeping together. However, she actually ends up staying the night with him, which is something she never ever does when she has a one-night stand. I mean, sure, she has to create like 1.5 million rules about them sleeping together, but hey, a start is a start. The next day, Bill Hader even calls her at work to ask about seeing her again, which of course causes her to just freak out and feel she needs to sever all ties with this guy now. Because apparently any guy that just wants to see her again is a serial murdering stalker that needs to be reported to the police. At least that's what's going through her overreacting mind. Now on Bill Hader's end, he's basically got LeBron James trying to coach him on how to make this whole relationship thing work. And we all know LeBron James isn't exactly super popular with a lot of people outside of Cleveland. I'll certainly say I'm not a fan of the way he comes across on and off the basketball court. Oh, but you'd totally love him if he was playing for the Celtics. Yeah, I probably would, just like all you Patriot haters out there would probably love Tom Brady if he was the QB for your team. So in the end, we're all hypocrites. But if I'm gonna judge LeBron James fairly, I gotta admit, he did a great job in this movie. I mean, he delivered some really funny moments, I thought. The way he tries to help Bill Hader's dating life. The way he tries to get out of paying for anything, even though he's one of the richest athletes alive. And the way he's always getting into Amy Schumer's face, all like, you better be good to my boy. I don't know, after seeing this movie, I honestly think he might have a career in acting after he's done with basketball. So eventually Amy Schumer meets with Bill Hader again while he's performing surgery to Uptown Girl. Which I guess is his go-to song for surgeries, we find out. She tries to break it off with him, but he apparently turns the conversation completely around and says that he really likes her and they should continue to date. And through a very awkward and complicated debate between the two, they become official. So they start dating and everything seems like it's going really great between them. They get along great, they get together all the time, even her dad loves him. In fact, he loves him so much that he tells her that she better not break his heart. Because it's in this moment her dad stresses to her that he sees too much of himself in Amy Schumer when it comes to relationships. And as a result, does not feel she is capable at all of holding on to one. Wow, way to inspire confidence there, Dad. Later on, they go to Amy Schumer's sister's baby shower. And here, Bill Hader continues to be a huge hit with everyone, especially with his line of work. However, best part is, as he's listing all the different athletes that he's worked with, everyone thinks it's all awesome, even with the athletes he's worked with that suck. But the second he mentions A-Rod, one of the guys just screams, "Fuck that asshole!" And that's the story of how that guy became my third favorite character in the whole movie. However, a few days have passed since the baby shower, and now Amy Schumer's dad has died. They have his funeral where Amy Schumer gives a really nice, heartfelt speech towards him. But immediately after the funeral, she accuses her sister of hating their dad and not really having any business being there. And I guess it never occurred to her to really think that this is the time or place to say something like that to your sister. Now their relationship is pretty much completely strained. Well, hey, at least she still got Bill Hader. And how does she prove her dad wrong from earlier? By stepping outside to smoke a J and talk to her boss during Bill Hader's award ceremony. Good job, Amy, for doing the one thing you really shouldn't do in that situation. So now they've gone into a fight that keeps them up all night and ruins Bill Hader's procedure to repair Amir Stoudemire's leg. I probably just completely mispronounced his name, so apologies. And it's with this incident, Bill Hader finally is able to confront Amy on the things that she does that he's not a fan of, and eventually leads to them breaking it off. But what I really liked with this scene is it addresses how difficult it is for couples to communicate with each other sometimes. Because in relationships, sometimes when one person may do something that bothers you, it may be something you can tell yourself you can deal with at first, but the more it happens and the more it builds up for you, it just becomes more hard for you to deal with. Communication is key to any and all relationships. Never forget that rule, people. And after that whole incident, Amy returns to her old ways. She immediately goes out partying, which eventually leads her to having an extremely awkward sexual episode with one of the interns from her work. Only gets more awkward when she ends up punching him in the face and then realizing he's only 16. So naturally, because of all that, she is fired from her job, and the magazine story she wrote about Bill Hader is scrapped. And it's officially at this moment she finally realizes she just needs to get her shit together. Some people don't realize how far they've been sinking until they hit their absolute rock bottom. She decides to meet up with her sister, she apologizes for everything that's happened to them, and they make amends. She even decides to send her story about Bill Hader to Vanity Fair, and they publish the story. Meanwhile, Bill Hader has successfully repaired Amari Stoudemire's leg, Bill Hader then attends the Knicks game to see how well he's doing post-injury. However, once the game is over, he gets called to the court where the Knicks City Dancers start performing for him, alongside Amy Schumer. But what's hilarious about this whole scene is seeing how bad she is at performing and out of shape she is compared to all these professional dancers. They perform for Bill Hader for a few songs, one of the songs being Uptown Girl. And I'm telling you, after you see this movie, Uptown Girl is going to be stuck in your head for a long-ass time. I know, because that's what happened with this guy. At the end of it all, Amy Schumer finally tells Bill Hader that she loves him. He says the same to her, and they finally reunite with each other as the movie concludes. So I have to say, Trainwreck was one of the more pleasant surprises I've seen this year. I mean, it was funny, it was clever, everyone in this movie played their part very well. And most importantly, this movie did what 99% of all romantic movies fail to do. Make the relationship appear real. It's like I said earlier, romantic movies are not something that I really want to go out of my way to go see. And no, it's not because the idea of love and happiness makes me insecure in my masculinity. But it's because I hear how so many people all over Facebook and Twitter are frequently like, why can't real relationships be like the ones in the movies? And the answer to that is because most of the relationships you see in these types of movies are not reality. This movie, however, knows what relationships truly are like in real life. And that's what made this movie good, because it's believable. The only real slight gripe I have with this movie is it didn't have any gut-busting, falling out of my chair, laughing to tears moments in it. Were there a lot of moments where I did laugh? Hell yeah, there were. Just not as hard as I was hoping I would be. But in the end, Trainwreck did its job and did it well, so I'm very glad I ended up seeing this movie. So that's all I gotta say, guys. Thank you so much for watching my video. Don't forget to leave a comment, like, subscribe, and I will see you all next time.